Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. With host and founder Richard Case and co-host and retreat leader Kathy Ricconi. Join us every weekday at this time to discuss news, spend time in the Word, and receive answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, good morning, Kathy. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning.
We're actually, I think this taping will be the very last day of, or the broadcast of this will be the last day of January 31st.
Oh, wow.
And it's exciting stuff. And you and I, of course, are into January now, and Christmas is over. We just had the great, shared yesterday about the great party, celebration of life. Milestone. It's really a reminder of God's, part of God's life for us is to gather and honor each other and have celebrations around, marriage and birthdays, anniversaries, Christmas, just things that we're just there's something about sweet fellowship that reminds us of keep having this opportunity. And I think you said it, is that, we have an immediate family, but our inner circle family is to be part of that life that we keep celebrating. Remember, and God reminds us, take the time to celebrate and just relax. We're not going to work on anything specific for your plans going forward. Just take a break and enjoy the feast, so to speak.
Right. And in fact, he had rhythms throughout the Bible commanded actually for the Israelites to do that, to stop and to celebrate. And it's so fun when you look at wedding celebrations. Truly, it is a celebration when two Christians are coming together, a celebration of covenant. And the picture, it is a picture of God's covenant with his people as well. Yeah. And so such a reason to celebrate, Yeah.
Yeah, and particularly as parents and then grandparents, and that's why you pray for your children to marry other believers. And when I take people through the premarital part, it's really, do you both have a heart to follow God? Because when you do, and we get to see it, there's a specialness to that. There's a sweetness to that and a reminder of that. And by the way, we know, you and I know, that Caleb and Olivia are going to have a spectacular life because they have a heart to follow God.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
And that brings great joy to everybody around them. And so that's why if you have a heart, and keep praying for and help your children and grandchildren marry spouses and help them both. Well, let's go learn to follow God together, and we'll join you. Join you in that, and it's fun. We get to do that right now with our grandkids, particularly about colleges and things, and just it's so fun to see them walk with God and let God deliver things to them.
And honestly, isn't it fun? Just on a side note, to see them, like I think about Dan's and my story, and even yours and Linda's story, and we were both a little later really getting what it is to walk with God, right?
Yes.
And so with each passing generation, as we teach them younger and younger, they are learning from an earlier age how to really navigate life in that, and the blessings beyond that are going to ripple out of them walking so young, so early, head over heels in love with God and surrendered to him. Like I believe we're just seeing the beginning of the ripple effects of that, and I love that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. A couple of things that, just as we're talking about prayer, remember prayer is just life with God, dialogue, and the privilege of walking with him into situations, with life and with things. So I was down in Birmingham, Alabama, yesterday, and was doing a partner and I, Jake Beckel, who's another leader in Living Waters, but he and I are partners, having founded a compound pharmacy, what we call a roll-up, which is acquiring these companies that are in an industry that actually need to join something bigger than be on their own. So it's kind of a neat thing that we're able to do. but we're part of it. And so we're down to Birmingham, and we're visiting a potential acquisition. And so, they're receiving us. And this guy, who's a pharmacist, I would say he's not, accomplished in acquisition or selling his company. So he brought in an advisor that's a friend of his from Las Vegas. So what Jake and I do, a little bit what you talked about yesterday about how you approached your wedding, is that, Father, what do you have to say about this? And show us what is your way with this, including, by the way, and we don't say, please make it happen. Right. It's rather help us understand the truth of this, including if it's not to be done, that's okay, because that's your will. We're good with that. Just show us the truth and how do we do this, and if we're going to do it, what's the best way to do it? And we've learned that we don't have a system for it. Well, we do this, and this, and we'll get there. It's like, well, each one is unique. Show us the way, and we'll follow and help us understand it. So
can I, before you go on with the story, I'm just going to highlight what you're talking about there. You're talking about the difference between letting go and surrendering.
Right.
And a lot of times people think, letting go, I'm just going to let go and let God. And surrendering is what you're talking about. There is a let go element, but it is a let go and submit to authority.
Yeah.
So when you surrender, you're submitting to him and allowing him to lead each step, whatever that looks like and wherever that takes it.
Yeah, because then it moves from I surrender my will, but then when I hear your will, I step into it.
Exactly.
I actually
comes with following the authority.
I'm following it. I'm believing what you're going to do next is going to be true. And so
yes.
So we prayed, and all we prayed, we started with a dinner. And this is where we're going to meet. We had already had conversation with the seller on the phone, but we've never met the advisor.
Okay.
And he basically had told us that I'm bringing the advisor in because I really don't know everything about this, and I need to have him advise me what to do.
Right.
And we don't know who that guy is. It's just somebody's going to show up. So our prayer was, Father, just open up wisdom and understanding about who this guy is and how do we relate to this guy. And so let's just have a nice dinner, but give us that. So we do. And so there's 4 of us, and I happen to be sitting next to the advisor. I said, tell me about your life. He said, well, I'm married. I've been divorced, but I'm married 11 years. And my wife, I said, well, what does she do? He says, well, she's very active in Christian stuff. She went to seminary and got an MDiv.
Wow.
Oh, where was that about? What is she active in? And then I said, well, I have a master's from seminary, and I've been a pastor, and I'm in business, and I have an MBA. And he said, well, that's an interesting combination. And so you've been active in these things too, yeah. And so we had a common bond right away, and he loved talking about it.
That's great.
So he's talking and he's sharing about the deals he's done, and and he has a little bit of an ego of things that look at what all the stuff I've done, but it's very cordial, very friendly. So we have this great dinner. So then Jake and I meet after dinner at the hotel, and I said, well, Jake, what did you understand about this? And he said, well, he's the key to the whole thing. I said, yeah. I said, now here's what I got, is that we got to let him develop the plan of how to do it. And instead of us telling him we'd like to do it this way, let's let him tell us how he wants to do it. And then we'll process it. And I believe that he will have an answer that he'll embrace, and we just got to fall in line with it. And whatever's right and fair, we'll do. And so, okay, let's do it that way. So next morning, by the way, and I shared this at the last. I think it's going to be on the 20th if you go back and look at the End Times one. But I was part of that national shutdown.
Right.
So, and this is always interesting. So I'm up early and I get a text that the system is down. And I said, uh-oh. So I get on the internet and find out, and the whole system's locked down for the entire country. And I'm in Birmingham, Alabama, and I'm going to have to try to get home.
Right.
And so my first thought is, man, I could be here for days.
Flights were canceled across the nation.
Yeah. What do I do? And so I just said, Father, what do you got to say about this? And he just said, you'll be okay. You're going to be late, but you'll still fly out today. You don't need to go do anything. Don't plan anything else. Just understand, I'm going to get you home, and it's going to be a long day for you. And you're part of what, we have a course called Overcoming Adversity.
Right.
And one of the characteristics are the different types, one of which is general adversity. And it wasn't personal.
Right.
But hey,
this was happening
I happen
across
to be
the
a
nation.
citizen. I happen to be a flyer on the day that the whole system shuts down. So you're going to have to understand it. And so stay in your peace. Ask me what I'm going to do, and I'll tell you what's going to happen here. So that's what he did. So he told me, don't worry about it. And I was a couple hours late, but I got out, and that was good news. So we go to this meeting, and this pharmacist is very super creative, and he's kind of all over the map of things he likes, doesn't like, wants to do, doesn't want to do, and all this stuff. And so he's just great. And we basically say, tell us about what's going on. So he does. So we're saying, okay, Father, how do we get to how the deal should be done? So God says, well, ask him these questions. And so we start asking him questions. Okay, what about? And he starts to narrow from the all this potential to this, and then Jake says, "Hey, by the way, I think I can describe what you've said." He reaches into his briefcase and pulls out a picture. He drew it 2 days ago.
Oh, you're kidding! And
he said, "God, what do you want me to understand?" And God gave him that picture.
I love that.
And so he pulls it out and puts it in front of everybody, and the guy says, "That's it. That's exactly it." And so we started now discussing around that picture. And okay, it works this way, and how is it going to work, and what do we need to do? And by the way, the advisor is kind of learning this along with us. So you could tell they hadn't even decided what they want to do yet. They were actually going to process with us. So we started focusing on this picture. Where's this guy? Where's this guy wind up? Because he wanted to sell his pharmacy, but he wanted to be part of something bigger.
Right.
Okay, where should he go? And God said, put him at the center. And come up with a way to do that. And so I was like, oh, okay. So I said, I'm thinking, okay, if he's at the center, and my questions were about how does he economically get rewarded for that?
Right.
Well, because of this interesting possibility of transactional fees, it was like, we'll put him at the center and let him there's going to be 3 different players. Let all 3 basically pay him out of that fee a what they call a per click amount. So it'd be like 50 cents for every prescription.
Right.
And put him so he could get income that way. Everybody else will get what they're going to get, and it won't even impact them much.
Oh, that's awesome.
And this guy can do really, really well, and then he could have some what they call options or equity warrants in the 3 different players. So I said, well, why don't you get in the center, and we'll pay you, everybody will pay you, the other 2 players will have to agree to this, but we'll pay you that fee. And his advisor said, let's do that. So then he says, okay, let's talk about the sale of the company. And he said, I think it should look this way. And the advisor said, I think it should go this way. And so we said, okay, let's take that, because God had already told us.
Right.
Take that, flush it out, come up with some numbers, and he'll agree to it. And basically, that's what we did.
That's beautiful.
And at the end of it, he said, okay, do it this way, write it up this way. He even said, now this is over the top, spectacular. This pharmacist has a partner that is more of a silent partner, and he's going to be a decision maker.
Okay.
So the advisor, we kind of come to, we'll do it this way. And he said, okay, let's do it that way. He said, he said, now write it up. And he said, nobody's ever said this to us, by the way. He says, I want you to, when you write it up, offer less so that the partner has a chance to increase it and he'll feel good about it, knowing that we're going to get to what we've agreed to, but you go offer less to start with.
Oh, interesting. And this is the advisor to the one you're actually selling it to. That's hilarious.
And Jake and I look at each other like, thanks, God. We got it. And so God orchestrated the whole thing. And so the prayer life, is life today. Real situations. And it wasn't, God, would you please make sure we get this acquisition and I'll let you know how it goes. It's rather, we're going in, give us insight, give us wisdom, help us understand things, what's true, including if you don't even want us to do this deal because you know something, we're okay with that. But show us. And we know that during the process, we're going to have conversation with God.
Right.
And we're going to notice something is like, oh, and I was blown away. I said, Jake, because we talked afterwards. I said, Jake, where did you get that picture? By the way, he hadn't given it to me.
Oh, that's amazing.
He hadn't given it to me. He hadn't shared it with me. He just says, I was praying about this 2 days ago, and God gave me this picture.
I love it.
And I kind of had forgot about it. And then when we're talking, it's like God reminded me, well, you've already drawn this out. And he puts it on the table. And then I said, do you see how cool that was? That we get the privilege of having God guide us, lead us, and experience it. And the joy for us is God himself.
Absolutely.
It's fun to see the result of it, but it was fun just to be part of it.
Right, exactly. And in the midst of it, he's magnified. And even now, as you're sharing the story, he's magnified once again.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's very exciting to be part of it. And that's what, the life with God is all about. So as we continue our discussion with Nehemiah, we left him last time at the end of the 4 months. He'd been praying. How's it going to work? God gave him the plan, gave him the information. It's going to work this way. You do this. He woke up that day and said, today's the day. And then he did. He asked for it. God gave it to him, and he gave him, yes, you can go. I'm going to give you protection, and I'm going to give you materials. So get going. Okay, so let's pick it up in chapter 2, verses 11 through 20.
Sure. It says, so I came to Jerusalem and was there 3 days. Then I arose in the night, I and a few men with me. I told no one what my God had put on my heart to do at Jerusalem, nor was there any animal with me except the one which I rode. And I went out by night through the valley gate to the serpent well and the refuse gate, and viewed the walls of Jerusalem, which were broken down, and its gates were burned with fire. Then I went on to the fountain gate and to the king's pool, but there was no room for the animal under me to pass. So I went up in the night by the valley and viewed the wall. Then I turned back and entered by the valley gate, and so returned. And the officials did not know where I had gone or what I had done. I had not yet told the Jews, the priests, the nobles, the officials, or the others who did the work. Then I said to them, you see the distress that we are in now, how Jerusalem lies waste, and its gates are burned with fire. Come and let us build the walls of Jerusalem, that we may no longer be a reproach. And I told them of the hand of my God, which had been good upon me, also of the king's words that he had spoken to me. So they said, let us rise up and build. Then they set their hands to this good work. But when Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite official and Geshem the Arab heard of it, They laughed at us and despised us and said, "What is this thing that you are doing? Will you rebel against the king?" So I answered them and said to them, "The God of heaven himself will prosper us. Therefore, we, his servants, will arise and build, and you have no heritage or right or memorial in Jerusalem."
Yeah. So, he was given permission to go, and he goes. When he arrives there, which, by the way, probably took at least a month, by the way, to get there, what did he do?
Well, actually, he's waiting for a little bit. He came to Jerusalem, and he was there for 3 days.
Yeah.
Before anything even transpired.
Yeah, and then what does he do? Where does he go? He goes out and he inspects the entire system.
The different gates, the cities, what's going on there.
Yeah. And he didn't, interesting enough, he says, and I haven't yet told anybody what I'm doing. I'm just here, and nobody even knows what I'm doing.
Right.
But I
gathering information.
Okay, now think about, why did he go out and inspect the gate? Or the gates on the wall? Because God said so.
Right.
Okay, now part of the plan, when you get to Jerusalem, the first thing I want you to do is go do an assessment. Now, the assessment was the reality of something that he'd never seen before. So he'd never been to Jerusalem.
Right.
And it wasn't, and this is important, so that did God tell him ahead of time every little detail? No. He just said, when you get there, do an assessment. And now you'll know the truth of what's really there.
Right.
And by the way, and we'll see this, that he in essence recorded it. So he probably drew a map and he made notes of the assessment, because God said, when you build the wall, it has to be very specific. It can't be with just good luck. You're going to have to know what to do step by step by step. Now, by the way, this is important too. Is Nehemiah a contractor? No. He's a cupbearer. But God is teaching him, here's what I want you to do to lead this construction project, and I need you to take detailed notes and do an assessment. So he does. He goes out and does an assessment, and then he gathers everybody. And in verse 17 and 18, what does he tell them?
He tells them actually the vision that God has given him to do this.
Yeah. So that I'm not here because it's a good idea. I'm not here because I think I'm a great leader. I'm here because God sent me, and let me describe to you how this worked.
Right.
I heard in December, and I prayed for 4 months, and God said, and God spoke, and there became a day when this happened, and the king did this, and God did this, and here it is. And I'm here because, and by the way, he's reminding everybody, the fundamental reason for this is what? God's promise that I'll restore you if you have a heart to be restored.
Right.
And I do, and God said this is it, and this is the time, and the people have a heart to be restored. So everything that we've thought about the covenant and the promise of that is going to happen right now. Here we go. And it's all about God, not about us. And they said in verse 18, what did they say? Let's go.
Let us rise up and build.
Okay, we're in. We get it. We get it. We're ready to go. And we're gonna let you lead us because God is speaking to you and giving you the mantle of leadership.
Right.
So we're going to follow, knowing that you're following God. We're going to follow what you say and let you lead us. By the way, they're following a cupbearer. But they've heard that God's mantle is on him, and they said yes. Okay, so immediately, what happens? They get opposition.
Right.
Okay, now think about how life is going to work. Remember, we're dealing with powers and principalities. God said, I have a will, and here's what I'm up to give you covenant life. Who's against that?
The enemy is,
the
for
enemy.
Sure. Yeah.
And what is the enemy's goal?
Steal, kill, and destroy.
To thwart God's will.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can get you distracted, fighting, arguing, thinking, working, worrying, fearful, not willing to go, going to fatalism, whatever happens, happens, then the enemy says I can thwart God's will, which, by the way, he does. He does a lot because people don't follow.
Right.
So they come and said, basically, you'll never get it done. You don't have the horsepower to do it, one. And two is, if you do it, we're going to report you to the king who you're coming against. And of course, Nehemiah already knows something. I've already got permission from the king, so that I don't care about that. And you don't scare me. You have no part in this, because God said, and he makes an emphatic statement, you have no right or heritage here, I do. And it doesn't matter what you say, because God is way superior to you. And I'm not going to even at the moment bother myself with you guys.
One of the things I love about this is looking back at the preparation that God had him, where he could so confidently answer this. I think sometimes, at least I know I have done this myself. I don't know if you've ever done this, but God will share a vision of something with me, of something he wants to do, much like he did for Nehemiah back 4 months previously. And I get so excited that out of the chute, I'm telling everybody, and I haven't even processed it through with God yet. And the beauty of what Nehemiah did is taking those 4 months to truly process it. He had such confidence in what he heard from God that when God said, okay, now is the time to share, there were hearts already prepared to hear. And when opposition came, he didn't go, oh, maybe I didn't hear right. Maybe I got this wrong. No, he had months in conversation with God, and God solidifying what he was speaking to him in order to give him the confidence. When that opposition comes, you can stand on what I said because you heard correctly.
Yeah. And that he understood, and by the way, we understand it, that as you're walking into my will, guess what? You're going to have opposition. You are going to have opposition. Here's what I want you to do with this. Don't be afraid of it. Don't get distracted by it. You have the right. You have the right to be here. They don't, and I'm way superior to them. So you and all that you just said. See, it involved all of that understanding. Okay, now just read the first 2 verses of chapter 3. This is interesting.
Okay, then how do you say that? Eliashib.
Yep.
Eliashib. I don't know.
Eliashib.
The high priest rose up. Eliashib, the high priest, rose up with his brethren and priests and built the sheep gate. They consecrated it and hung its doors. They built as far as the Tower of the 100 and consecrated it, then as far as the Tower of Hananel. Next to Eliashib, the men of Jericho built, and next to them, Zachar, the son of Imri, built.
Okay. By the way, all of chapter 3 is, here's who built what?
Built these gates, yes.
Built these gates, these pieces of the wall, etc. So the plan, when God gave him the plan, it was do the assessment and then assign the people that care about that gate or section to that place.
Right.
And you discover who should go where, and then you make the assignments and you put them at their location. Okay, so we'll just take the first one. The priest built the sheep gate.
Right.
Okay, now think about that. What relationship do the priest have with the sheep gate?
I love that. Yeah. So you talk about shepherding a people.
Well, shepherding the people, and remember the temple's going to get back in business. And what happens at the temple? The killing of sheep.
That's where sacrifices take place.
Of the sheep.
And
Who
the
cares
sheep
about
would be
that?
coming in. Yes.
The priest.
The priest, definitely, yeah.
Okay, so that's their place. Is they care about this, and they're going to have a special connection to that place. So put them there. Everybody else is what's important to them in front of their own house. He assigned everybody that God knew had a more than just building something, and which they all wanted to do. they have a little bit even further connectivity.
A vested interest, right?
A vested interest at this particular location. Mm-hmm. And he made the assignments. And it was, how did he do that? Well, he wouldn't know to do that by himself. Mm-hmm. God said, hey, by the way, when you get there, do the assessment, then tell them, now make the assignments and get everybody so that they don't have to worry about the whole. They just got to do their piece of it.
Right.
And if you get enough people around the wall doing their piece of it, this ain't going to take that long, which, by the way, we'll find out. God's fulfillment of his will is very precise, specific, and has to happen in reality to be fulfilled, as opposed to, I want you to build the wall, go figure it out, good luck. It was, no, I'll guide you and lead you every step of the way, because just like I was talking about our deal with in Birmingham, is God says, I know what I'm doing. So why don't you follow me instead of you figuring out what you got to do? Right. And don't just pray to me, God, make it happen, or I'll make it happen, bless what I'm going to do. Why don't you talk to me, and I'll keep guiding you step by step by step. And that's what happened with Nehemiah. So now he's got people in place to actually do the work around the entire system. So it's really remarkable to see how God works with the beauty of how he approached it, the information he got, the instruction he got, and then it was, okay, now that I know the wall and the assessment of the wall, now what? Okay, how do I assign it? Do it this way. Now what? So it's not the whole thing. It's just step by step by step, knowing what is going to happen. So it's so fun to talk about it. It's just beautiful. So we'll pick it up again next time to finish one more story with Nehemiah, because he's got such rich things involved with things in his life of how he talked to God.
Yeah, just a beautiful example of walking in a prayer life with him, right?
Yeah.
So thanks so much for sharing, and thank you for joining us, everyone. If this has brought up questions for you, send them in to us at questions@afjministry.com, and we will be happy to bring them on the podcast. And look forward to talking to you again soon. Have a great day.
Yep, we'll see you soon.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.